Welcome to this week's Wildcat Weekly. I'm Caroline Diet.
And I'm Sarah Phelps.
This Saturday is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. In honor of that, we reached out to some teachers to hear about their experiences during this momentous event.
The morning of September 11th, I was a sophomore in college at Lynchburg College, and I was asleep because I had a late class that day, Spanish class, and I was woken up by my friend banging on my door. She came in and told me to turn on the TV, and then she said, "Call your dad," and I didn't know what she meant by that, so turn on the TV, and it was the second plane had just hit the towers. And so the reason she was telling me to call my dad is because my dad at the time was working at the Pentagon. So calling my dad, not getting through, all the cell phone towers were just completely jammed up with people trying to make phone calls. Eventually got a hold of him later in the day, and he was fine, nothing with him. He did lose some coworkers at the Pentagon.
Right. Well, I was actually teaching in this room the day of 9/11, and my first indication that something had gone wrong was the assistant principal, Kathy Brandt, came around and called me to the hallway and said, "Our nation is under attack. Terrorists have attacked the World Trade Center in New York City." My first reaction was complete disbelief. I just thought it must be a mistaken report somehow. So when I looked on CNN.com and saw some news reports in the video, and they talked about a plane crashing into the first tower of the World Trade Center, my first thought was, well, maybe the pilot had a heart attack. Maybe it was just some accident that had happened. And then later in the day, about an hour later, the second plane crashed in the tower, and the Pentagon attack also happened. At that point, I knew that it really was a terrorist attack on our nation. And my thoughts were it was very surreal. It was just hard to believe this was actually happening. And I was just kind of like numb teaching the rest of the day because it was just constantly on our minds. I remember several parents came and picked up their students from school that day when they started hearing the news. And it was just very surreal making it through the rest of the day. And then of course, when everybody got home, then we realized the real gravity of the situation. So I'll never forget that day.
I was about y'all's age. I was 17. I was a junior in high school when it happened. And I think what really stands out to me is how fast information travels these days. I had a doctor's appointment that morning, so I was out of school. And I heard something on the radio about a plane hitting one of the towers, but when I got to school, no one else had heard about it. No one knew what was going on. And you didn't have the internet on your phone. Really, very few people had phones, and you had to be on a computer to get on the internet. And I guess someone at some point saw it on the computer and was mentioning it at lunch, but most of us didn't know much about it. But I remember that afternoon, my history teacher, Miss Weddle, she said, "This is history happening right now," and she put it on the TV, and it was just, I remember the shock to everybody as we were watching it unfold, and when that first tower came down, just the silence that I don't know, that always stood out to me, and the shock. And I guess those buildings were just iconic in everything. Everything you saw on TV that had New York in it, you always saw the two towers, and just that they could be attacked. And I think that was the other big thing that really just shocked everyone, was that we felt invincible in the United States. Like no one's going to invade the United States. It's just not. No one's going to attack us. And for the first time in all of our lifetimes, and probably since World War II, we felt vulnerable that something could actually happen in America. Well, and I remember one of my other teachers later that day telling us that after this, things are going to be different. It's just things are not going to be quite the same. And some minor things like air travel changed quite a bit because a lot more security. There was more security kind of everywhere you went. I had a lot of friends that ended up joining the military because they felt like it was their duty after that.
That's all for this Wildcat Weekly. Hope to see you at the press rally.
And make sure to check out the Prowler website for some new articles.